Hi, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Sara Inés Calderón,
And I'm Adriana Maestas.
and this is our very first inaugural Latino Politics News Roundup. Thank you so much for joining us. We're hoping this is going to become a weekly segment in which we talk about Latino politics, Latino politicians, Latino issues, because we found when we were looking around for the Latino version of Meet the Press or some such morning show, there wasn't one. And so we're hoping this will be that kind of space. So please tune in, subscribe to our channel, share this video, tweet it, like it, leave us your comments.
Yeah, tweet us suggestions.
Tweet us suggestions. If you want to be on our show, we can totally arrange that. If you have somebody that you think we should interview, we'd love to do that. So feel free to reach out. This is our show. It's not just, Shinai's show. So feel free, you can take ownership of it too.
Definitely. So. Well, obviously this week was dominated by the debate.
Yeah,
that was the
everybody
big news
was
of the
talking
week.
about the debates this week. So, but it was kind of crazy. because
no mention of immigration.
There was no mention of immigration. There was a lot of other stuff in there about the economy and stuff. But
yeah, it was definitely centered around the economy and jobs, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. Everyone was saying that, Romney won, Romney lost. But the thing that I thought was funny was that there was just so low expectations for him, especially after his 47% comment, that all he had to do was not come out like too much of a overprivileged white guy.
Exactly. And actually he did win, and he just looked more in charge and commanding of the issues, even though a lot of people have said, he told a lot of lies, and that's been documented.
You think you think he did?
I think so. He wasn't really clear about his tax plan and the whole thing about the outsourcing. He seemed to skirt around that.
Yeah.
But anyway, to bring it back to Latino politics, one thing why we think it's interesting that immigration was not mentioned is there was a piece that came out on politic365.com this week, and it was a report that I wrote up about the new report that came from the Center for American Progress. So basically what that report said is if the DREAM Act were passed, $329 billion would be added to the economy by 2030.
And this isn't the first time they've done a study like that. I think in 2010 there was a study from UCLA that basically found the same thing, that the DREAM Act would add money into the economy via jobs and investment, right?
Jobs and investment. Basically what you're doing is when you bring people out of the shadow economy, you're going to have people who want to buy homes, they want to buy cars, they want to do things, and so they're not hiding in it, and everything becomes legitimized. So that was the main point of that.
I don't know. Yeah, it's not like immigration is the only Latino issue, but since it's been such a big part of all of the campaign ads and the attacks and the proxies, you'd think that there would have been at least something. But.
Yeah, and especially, too, because, you have Romney, who is performing so poorly among Latino voters. But, in a way, I'm not surprised that he didn't mention it because he doesn't really have much to offer in terms of immigration.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But then you brought up also earlier this week that he kind of flip-flopped, surprisingly, right? He said he would undo deferred action, but that he wouldn't deport anybody.
Well, actually what he said something is he would honor the people who received deferred action, and he said something to the effect of because they purchased their visa. But what he would do is he wouldn't continue the program if he were elected.
Oh, okay.
So that is something that's important to the young undocumented people who have been the recipients of the deferred action program under the Obama administration.
Definitely.
But to get back to that, one thing we do want to talk about is the polling this week between President Obama and Mitt Romney. So Obama he continues to crush Romney with Latino voters, and according to Latino Decisions, Obama is predicted to take 76.7% of the Latino vote, with Mitt Romney only taking about 23%.
Wow.
And within that, too, Obama is leading in key swing states. And Florida, he's leading by about a 30-point margin. And he's also leading in Nevada by quite a bit.
Well, and how important are the Latino votes in those two states? I know in 2010, the Latino vote was instrumental in keeping Harry Reid and the Senate for the Democrats, right? So that was a huge deal. But what about in Florida? Since that's the gold state, here in
I think
the
it's considered
system.
the biggest swing state in terms of electoral college. So I think that's important, but it's also interesting that Obama is leading so much there because it has been a state where the Latino vote has traditionally gone Republican. And what you're seeing is obviously younger Cuban Americans and Puerto Ricans and other Latins in Florida who lean Democratic. So
that's a really interesting shift too.
It is an interesting shift.
I mean, I think that's something we've read about for years, right? About how younger Latinos in Florida are moving away from the Republican Party, and I think it'll be really interesting post the election to see the breakdown of exactly how that pattern had manifested itself.
Yeah, definitely.
At the polls.
An age breakdown would be really helpful.
Cool. That'll be so cool.
Okay, so that brings us to another state that some people are considering swing status, and it's rather recent. So
in Arizona. Yeah, sure. Let me tell you about Arizona this week. I thought it was so. I mean, you don't really hear a whole lot out of Arizona especially when it comes to Latino issues, except for really, really bad stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought was so cool about this week is there was some really, really good news, as well as some more escándalo out of Arizona. So first of all, and I mean, for those who may not know, I think Cesar Chavez of the United Farm Workers movement, he did a lot of work in California, obviously, especially with the grape industry, the grape pickers. But he's actually from Arizona.
Yeah, he's an Arizonan.
Yeah, he's an Arizonan. And so I think Obama announced this week that his home in La Paz, which is outside of Keene, California, is going to be part of a national monument.
They're going to call it the Cesar E. Chavez National Monument.
Yeah.
And President Obama is actually traveling there on Monday.
Yeah. Again, going back to this swing state issue to try to court Latino voters. So that was really cool. I mean, I think for me, that kind of represents, Latinos, being recognized as, institutionally on a national level as part of the American heritage and the American experience. I mean, you look at it that way. Politics aside is super important, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that it's interesting. I mean, obviously, Cesar Chavez, his career and that sort of the trajectory of his career and the end of his life and all of that was in California.
Yeah.
But, it's also important to point out, where he did come from, because a lot of people, they might not know. He's from Arizona.
Arizona has a long and often contentious history with its mostly Mexican-American, Latino population. So, but there were also a couple of other unfortunate, let's say, things that happened in Arizona this week. One was there was an incident on the Arizona border in which a Border Patrol agent was killed. And that's a tragedy, obviously, anytime law enforcement goes down in line of duty. Unfortunately, what has come to light is that it was a friendly fire incident, which means to say that he was killed by another Border Patrol agent at the scene. So, and that was something that you were talking about, which is, President Obama, as we all know, has upped enforcement, as did President Bush before him post 9/11 with the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. And as a result, this kind of ramp up we had towards militarizing the border that started in the 1990s, this is the kind of stuff that you get. I mean, a lot of, the people that end up going into these positions are former military. And when you're talking about like civilian law enforcement, but you're talking about in the context of you're saying
a militarized border. Yeah, so I mean, I think that like we might see more of this.
Yeah.
Because you have armed border agents, and it's a heightened environment. Like the scrutiny and the stakes are high, and they have numbers to show for too.
Exactly. So, definitely it's unfortunate, and our hearts go out to the family of this gentleman, but. It's also hopefully something that lawmakers and policymakers will kind of look at and say, hey, gee, maybe we're going about this all wrong, especially in the context of the DREAM Act and other immigration-related legislation. So finally, there was this whole, what I would always love to call a telenovela that happened in Arizona, where there's this man who's been like a community leader and educator for like 40 years.
And a state
lawmaker who was in court and pleaded guilty?
Yeah, to felonies. He agreed to resign his seat. Apparently, he had been indicted for bribery, mail fraud, lying, and extortion, and his name was Arredondo.
Ben Arredondo,
Mhm.
yeah. So that's one less Latino in the Arizona legislature.
Yeah, one less Latino in the Arizona legislature. What's kind of sad about this situation is this is a man who, according to azcentral.com, he had a 40-year legacy as an educator and as a public servant, and it's kind of sad to go down in flames.
Yeah.
For basically corruption.
Corruption, yeah. And it wasn't even. I mean, that's what we were saying. It's like it wasn't even something huge like Enron.
Yeah.
It was like he was giving money to his family to go to college.
And bribes, accepting bribes. He got caught in a FBI sting. So, I mean, basically, like, what that kind of says is, in a place like Arizona, where I think Latino legislators would be under more scrutiny, it's just a little odd that somebody would take that risk.
Definitely.
So.
Especially at a time where I think Arizona is going through all of this. It's going through Arizona and Texas, I believe, are going through kind of like a transformational process when it comes to elected officials in politics as Latinos are kind of moving into that space. And so, I hope, and I think that you would too, we hope that that would be a good thing. And it's unfortunate that these are the types of, stories that get highlighted instead of those people moving.
Instead of a real legislative accomplishment or new policy or something.
Exactly. So, and then, this is kind of a new venture between Adriana and myself, and I hope that's something that we do in the long term. And please, send us your emails, leave us comments in the comments below, like this video, share it with your networks, tweet it, Facebook it, let us know what you think, because we're hoping to do it for a while. We're definitely, leading up to the election, going to be trying to highlight some of the bigger Latino races going on in the country. So I just kind of wanted to go briefly over some of those congressional races, which are pretty interesting. I mean, we could potentially see some more Latinos moving into Congress, in a month, basically.
Yeah, new Hispanic caucus members.
Yeah, it'll be really exciting. So I just kind of wanted to go over some of the 4 of the top races that I think you should probably keep your eye on if you're into that kind of thing. So in California's 10th district, between Jose Hernandez, the former astronaut, rags to riches. Astro Jose on Twitter. He's so amazing. His personal story is so American. His opponent, Jeff Denham, there's 2 polls that show that it's 46 to 44%, 43 to 45. So Hernandez is really close in that race. So it'll be real interesting to see what happens. And then you have in California's 36th district, which is near Palm Springs.
Yeah, near Palm Springs.
Imperial area, Imperial Valley.
Yeah.
So you have Mary Bono Mack, who, if you recall, was the wife of
Sonny Bono.
then Congressman Sonny Bono, who died tragically. She's since remarried, and her name's now Mary Bono Mack. And it's been a really interesting race because he was the real underdog. But now a recent poll shows that, he's within 3 points of her, 44 to 47%. So that would be really interesting to see a Latino congressman in Palm Springs.
Oh, definitely.
So then we have in Texas, this is a really interesting race because it's between two Latinos, Kiko Canseco and Pete Gallego. Canseco's the incumbent. Gallego is coming from the state legislature, and this district runs along South Texas. And there's 2 polls. Canseco's had a poll release that showed he was ahead 37 to 47%, but another poll showed Gallego ahead 43 to 38%, and that was a poll that was sponsored by the League of Conservation Voters and a couple of other groups. So it'll be they just recently debated in Spanish, and so it's a really interesting race because it's very culture is such a big component of their politicking there. So that one's pretty cool. And then, as you were pointing out earlier, the Senate race in Arizona, which we were talking about earlier, is super interesting because you have Richard Carmona, who's not Mexican, he's Puerto Rican. However, right? He's Puerto Rican.
Yeah,
right?
he is Puerto Rican.
So he's former Attorney General.
And he was born in New York City.
Surgeon General.
Yeah,
former Surgeon General. And he is
former
real close.
Surgeon General and George W. Bush.
And for George W. Bush, that's
so
right.
He's actually, he was a Republican, I think, is an independent running on the Democratic ticket, or that's how I think they've been identifying him.
Yeah. So it shows that real close to 45 to 43% there. And mind you, all of these stories that we're citing are going to be in the description box. So if you want to follow up or fact check us or whatever, you can go ahead and do so because we've researched all this stuff. So those are the races that I would be, watching. Those are the races that I'm going to be watching and that, Adriana's going to be watching. And you can read our stuff on Twitter. I'm Sara Chica D, and she's Latino Politics.
Yeah, on Twitter.
Yeah, and we both also write for politic365.com. Again, our email is latinopoliticsroundup@gmail.com. Leave us your comments and subscribe because we're going to be doing this hopefully at least once a week. Let us know what you think.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.